So my name is Crystal. I'm from Okta Product Marketing. You guys have been here maybe 2-3 days already. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to see how Okta is able to help integrate apps and people. So in this session, we're going to be talking about a very special type of integration, the integration of organizations in mergers and acquisitions. And I'm going to give a brief overview of how Okta can help with that. I'm sure you guys know about how we can integrate some of the applications, but I wanted to put a perspective for mergers and acquisitions on top of that. And then we'll also be hearing from our customers at Moody's on how Okta has helped with their M&A activities. So let's go ahead and get started. First, a word from our legal department. As Nicole mentioned, the TLDR here is things can change. So to get started for real, every year, Deloitte does this study, one of our partners, on mergers and acquisitions. It's called the State of the Deal. And in this study, they basically survey a bunch of companies, both private and public. I believe it's over 1,000 corporations in the U.S. And they study the M&A trends. And for this year, 2019, they realized that there were 3 top strategic goals across all of these organizations for mergers and acquisitions. And they are acquiring technology, diversifying and expanding your product area, and then finally, and this is the biggest one this year, expanding your customer base. Now, through all these different acquisitions and mergers that they looked at, there was a single thing that they realized that the executives were saying was the most important for the success of an M&A. Any guesses to what that was? Speed? Good guess. Not quite. I wish it was identity, but it's not either. It's effective integration. Now, there's a lot that goes into integration. There's a lot of different challenges. There's a lot of different people and different stakeholders. And it's not always just about tools and technology, because you're really also trying to bring together different people from different organizations and also trying to combine that culture, right? Of course, tools and technologies can help. But take a look at the different challenges. First, we've got your business challenges, right? A lot of the primary goals here are how do we get that return on investment faster? To do that, we have to make sure that we can effectively collaborate between the acquiring company and the acquired company. Next, we have to look at the IT teams. They have a huge job to fulfill. There are different disparate tools and technology between the 2 different companies. There might be some on-premise things. There might be things in the cloud. These tools and technologies may not even talk to each other natively. So how do we integrate these things so that they're able to talk to each other? How do we reduce complexity? Really, how do we streamline the IT processes? Next, there's security, right? These folks also have a big role to fill, and it's a bit of a nail-biter in M&As because you don't really know what you're going to get until you start digging in and doing that security due diligence. They're looking at how to close security gaps. What type of risks are we inheriting as the acquiring company? I mean, deals fall through because of this, right? So what they're ultimately trying to figure out is how do we provide the right access to the right people for the right applications for them to do their jobs. Now, that's all going to be internal to the workforce, right? So we have one more group that cares a lot about the M&A, but they're not part of either the acquired company or the acquiring company. That's going to be the customer, right? They're sitting over there to the side going, how's this going to affect me? As a consumer, supposedly you guys did this deal to benefit me. I want to make sure that my experience is still going to be just as good. I don't want anything to change, but wait, you guys have to make it better at the same time, because I want access to all the new resources that the parent company have. So how does identity help in this, and how can Okta help? Well, when we talk about identity in M&A use cases, our primary goal here is to streamline and secure access. So in terms of that, what are we talking about? Let's take the best-of-breed cloud apps from both the parent company and subsidiary. I'm going to use parent and subsidiary because it fit on my presentation better and it's easier to say. Let's make sure that both users from both companies can have centralized and streamlined access to that through single sign-on. And then let's also do that to our on-premise applications. And at the same time, while we're talking about those on-premise applications, let's see if there's any redundancies or things we can move onto the cloud and get rid of some of that more costly on-premise infrastructure. Next, let's take those directories from the parent and the subsidiary, and let's make IT's job a little bit easier by giving them a single pane of glass. And this is also going to provide visibility for the security teams to make sure that they can see who has access to what and be able to control that access for the tools. Finally, let's start automating some of the routine processes, onboarding and offboarding. When we bring in users, whether they're internal or contractors or your partners, or whether they're even customers, let's start creating processes so we can do this automatically. So how can Okta do this? What are some of the benefits? First, we support that flexible architecture. Every M&A is going to be a little bit different, and we provide that flexibility for our customers. This may seem like the, most simple setup. We have one big happy family, everybody's merged together, there's the parent, we have access to all our apps, and then we have one big global AD. But a lot of organizations don't want that. You guys heard this morning from Albertsons, they're a national company, but they still want to connect to their local communities. So whether it's for geographical reasons or sometimes it's compliance reasons, if it's a global company, we do want to maintain some autonomy. So we also support things like hub and spoke architectures where the subsidiaries can have access and their own tenants. They have access to their own applications, and they have access to their local directories, LDAPs, ADs, what have you. But then they can also get access to the resources that the parent company provides. And the parent company can also see the different users and workers in the subsidiaries. So that's one side. The other side is going to be the customer. So Identity can help enhance that customer experience, starting with the first touch, which is typically the log-on experience at the, on your website. So here, let's do things like IDP discovery, where we can route customers on the back end, depending on their device, where they're coming from, and also domain or location, and route them to the correct identity provider, because some of your subsidiaries may not be using the same IDP as your parent company. And then let's also enable social auth for them so that they have easier ways to log in and they're using something they might already have a password for example. And of course, you can also do this for your workforce customers as well. So that way, you're also able to provide them the same experience that they were used to as a customer of this subsidiary. But then at the same time, they also have really easy access to the new products, the new experiences that the parent company can also provide. And that's because on the back end, we're able to help import these users and import these customers. And we also have flexible ways to do that. Of course, we can do bulk imports. We can also do staged imports. If you were at the UD, what's it called? The UD session yesterday, you learned about some of the enhancement we're planning, the advanced features, so that we can, say, dedupe users who may be customers of both. And so again, we're also providing that flexibility. We can even do just-in-time imports and leave it kind of up to the customer on when they want to be migrated into the database. So in summary, Okta can help provide that day one access needs in a M&A for things like consolidating AD, or might I say eliminating AD, adding single sign-on and making sure everybody has access to the apps that they need on day one. But because M&As don't always take a single day, I mean, most of the time they don't, we can also help you achieve the future goals by continuing to streamline, continuing to set up processes to help automate onboarding and offboarding and manage your external identities, including partner identities and customer identities. So that's it for my spiel. I want to, so all of that will help fit in and serve your goals of effective integration and hopefully a successful M&A. And with that, I want to welcome Keith Barry and Gurinder Bhatti from Moody's onto the stage.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for turning up at the end of the second day. My name's Keith Berry. I am Executive Director at Moody's Analytics, part of the executive team. A long time ago, I had a technology background, and now I'm very much kind of on the business side of things. So Moody's really has two core components. We have the rating agency, which is what most people know us for, but then we've also got a company called Moody's Analytics, which is a data analytics and software company. And we've been growing rapidly over the last 10 years since we came into being. And our goal is to help our customers, which tend to be financial institutions, banks, asset managers, insurance companies, make better, faster decisions using technology, using software, using data and analytics. Over the last 10 years, I joined the company where the red flag is. We've grown substantially, about 12.5% a year, from $400 or $500 million in revenue to now $1.7 billion. But this chart really shows all the acquisitions we've done along the way. So every year, 2 years, we add 1 or 2 acquisitions, and if anything, we've been speeding up. You can see the number of employees has grown from 849 to more than 7,000 now, and the number of offices from 16 to more than 72. So this is kind of becoming part of our day-to-day as acquiring companies. About 50% of our growth comes through organic, so new things we build ourselves, and 50% through acquisition. And when we do acquire companies, it's for many of the reasons Crystal said: new customers, new data. As a data and analytics company, we're often acquiring new data sets and putting them together with the data sets we've got. And that really means that our teams have to work together, and the quicker we can hit the ground running after an acquisition and get people working together really changes the dynamics of the whole acquisition. So the last acquisition we did in 2017, Bureau van Dijk, was actually our biggest to date. More than $3 billion acquisition, more than 30 locations. And when we actually did, up until this point, very much our approach to acquisitions that Gurinder's going to talk about in more detail was to basically put everyone onto the same network and then basically gradually grant them access to various services. So kind of 19 months into the BvD acquisition was the time that people could actually really start collaborating and working together. And what we're going to talk to you a bit more about is how we did that differently right now with the Reis acquisition, which happened at the end of 2018, and some of the results we've seen. But as an executive team, after the BvD acquisition happened, we kind of sat down with our colleagues in the technology and InfoSec teams and said, look, how do we change this? We're going to do more acquisitions. It's not going to slow down. So how do we set ourselves up to, when we do them, and it's probably going to be 1 or 2 a year, we can get people working together operationally in as like 3 months. And I literally remember being sat in that room and people just rolling their eyes saying, it's impossible. There's no way we can do that. And so I think 18 months later, we've proven that we can do that. Collaboration around our business is getting more and more complex. As the number of locations increases, the number of people increases, collaboration across the business lines has been very key. How do we work with external partners? So we're doing acquisitions, but we're also working more and more with partner organizations. And so we would try to find a set of solutions that would help us do that. And then we're really a technology company, and more and more developers, keeping the kind of development teams happy. And we have some pretty demanding people doing quantified ads, machine learning, big data, and analytics has been really important. And then we put people on the road a lot. When we go and implement our software at a bank, people are often sat in the customer's site, maybe using a hotspot for a whole period of time and kind of struggling with the VPN. So that's been another goal of what we're trying to do. Of course, the Moody's brand is pretty key to us, and kind of keeping our data and our customers' data safe is very key to all of that. So we kind of sat down with the team and said, how do we do all this, but at the same time, make sure we keep our data safe. And I'm going to pass it off to Gurinder, who's going to talk a bit about how we've achieved all that.
Thanks, Keith.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, folks. So now that Keith has outlined the asks from the business, I want to talk about how we were able to solution those using Okta, and also how our integration strategy has transformed with Okta playing a key role, right? So let's get started. We proceeded to first map the asks that Keith first referenced into tangible deliverables that from a technology perspective we felt comfortable implementing. So we essentially broke this down into 3 work streams, those being acquisitions, development, and sales and support. And if you look at this essentially represents a business process pipeline of acquiring a company, working with them to build a product or solution, and then pushing that out to the hands of your sales teams, to your customers, and into the market, right? Going deeper into each of these work streams, we can see that from an acquisition perspective, we want to be able to achieve rapid integrations and quick enablements. For collaboration, allowing lines of businesses to collaborate with each other, allowing them to collaborate with external parties, and also give our users and developers an open network to operate out of. And finally, from a product and service perspective, giving our sales teams the ability to use a modern platform while providing our users a first-class consumer experience. And keep in mind, all this has to be under the guise of proper controls, right? So that, from a security perspective, we're assured along with our customers in the security of the solutions that we're building and delivering. And how's Okta helping us with that? So look at it from an acquisition perspective. By leveraging Okta's capability to centrally manage and integrate user identities, we're eliminating the need or reducing the need to have that network integration, right? From a collaboration perspective, again, reducing the dependency on on-network resources and parameterizing our applications, we're able to do those quick enablements such as collaboration applications. And finally, providing modern authentication solutions such as SSO and MFA to our sales and support teams not only equip them with modern tools, but also help us stand out to our customers. So now I want to talk about basically how Okta was able to be a key component in all these enablements. But equally important is the fact that during each of these phases, we had the proper controls and granular security ability to be put into place here. So whether that's dictating access based off of security groups or network topologies, or implementing step-up authentication with Okta Verify based off of user behavior analysis, Okta was essential in helping us deliver the solutions that Keith first referenced in his asks and his objectives. So let's talk about integrations specifically, right? And I want to highlight the differences between how a legacy integration, a traditional integration was, and how we've transformed that process. So from a legacy perspective, an integration at Moody's was typically consisting of 4 distinct phases, and a implementation time could be up to 18 months. Now, the 4 phases are base enablements, network preparation, network integration, and a full integration. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, about this inverted pyramid, but basically what this shows is that from a feature perspective, from a capabilities perspective, we're building in capabilities as we're going up in time. So it's getting bigger in terms of the capability of the feature sets as you go up the timeline. Looking at the details of each of these phases, from a base enablement perspective, we're performing network and security assessments, right? So depending on the complexity of the networks, depending on how big and size of it that is, that's doing the not only the security assessment, then that's followed by risk mitigation and remediation actions. And that could, again, be a 3-month effort depending on the complexity of the network before we're able to move into the network preparation phase. And the network preparation phase is actually where we're doing the actual groundwork of deploying equipment to provide the end-to-end connectivity between the acquisition and the Moody's network. So whether that's the procurement of circuits or configuration and putting in hardware equipment like firewalls and routers and such, this is actually connecting the wires that establish the physical link. So now you can see we're at 6 months of pre-work before we're able to provide the network integration, app integration phase. And that's essentially what the user cares about, right? That's what's impacting the user, is giving the user access to resources and applications, which we don't get to until 6 months down the line. And what the last leg of this integration obviously is the hardware refresh and eventually the sunsetting and decomming of the original acquisition network. So how does that compare with the modern framework, right? For one, the pyramid's right side up, but additionally, what we're doing is we've shrunken down the stages from 4 to 3. So now we have base enablements, core integration, and post-integration, and mapped out a lot of the deliverables that we did in the legacy framework into the modern framework. Along with that, we've drastically reduced the integration time to where we're looking to have a full service and feature capabilities afforded to our end users within 6 months time frame. A key takeaway from this is that a key characteristic of this framework is the fact that the network preparation phase has been completely eliminated. So not only does this represent that fact that we can move into the next phase 6 months sooner, but more importantly, what it's done is it's allowed us to strategize how we approach our base enablements in a totally different way, right? So when we're beginning integrations, we're no longer waiting on network connectivity and deployment of equipment to get started. In fact, when we're doing, in base enablements, we're doing network security assessments. In parallel, we can kick off the quick enablements of setting up applications that can provide immediate value to the acquisition so they can get up and collaborating with the Moody's lines of businesses. So, this shows us how a legacy integration framework has transformed into a modern one. And I want to walk you guys through an actual workflow to show you a visual workflow to show you how this looks, right? So here we have two entities. We have a new acquisition, let's call it NewCo, and Moody's. So on day 0, new acquisition is independently operating on the left here, and you have the Moody's universe on the right, consisting of SaaS-enabled applications fronted for access and enablement through Okta, lifecycle management activities, HR activities, and modern workplace capabilities. So what happens on day 1 when we kick off this integration? First thing we can do is we can connect the acquisition network to Okta to be able to start syncing their user store and bring in that user data for future access and enablements. Same time during day 1, phase 1, we can do what I like to achieve, what I like to call is light touch integrations. So these are integrations where there's not much complexity required around application enablement because the applications that we're enabling can provide immediate value to the business, but at the same time don't have dependencies on back-end systems. Along the same line, during phase 1, we're doing the activities of creating user IDs on our domain for the acquisition network. Now let's look at phase 2. Right? Phase 2, we're continuing the enablements for a lot of our SaaS catalog offerings, but here we're doing it for more, complicated applications or applications that might have, again, dependencies on downstream systems like back office applications or HR systems, or require, data manipulation or attribute mapping that might just, essentially take a little bit more time to integrate. Also, at the same time, this is a huge win for us where we're able to provide access to non-Moody's accounts to our on-premise Moody's network resources. So if you think about that, what happens is for services and resources that are not internet exposed, we're able to give those and grant access to those to our non-Moody's users. So things like new hire orientation material or employee handbooks or maybe file shares that might not be hosted on a SaaS portal somewhere, again, we can, with the ability of integration through Okta, give that capability to the new users who are non-Moody's users and have them consume that resource. So, the frameworks and methodologies help us sort of understand what the technical implementation looks like. But how does that translate to the business, right? Because from a metrics perspective, what can we measure in terms of how much impact it's had to the business? Well, we can measure time. And that's what we want to look at here real quick. Again, visiting different phases that what we talked about earlier, we can see the differences between pre-Okta and post-Okta implementations. So from a base enablement perspective, what we normally took 3 months to deliver, we can do so in about a month. And so that's 2 months of savings. From a network preparation perspective, again, a 6-month effort has been totally eliminated. And like I said, the result of that is not only the ability to start the next stage sooner, but also be able to do a lot of the work in the base enablement phase in terms of the quick enablement accesses. And finally, the network and app integration, which was a 7 to 18-month effort, has been reduced down to about 6 months, which is a 12-month savings, along with the capital expenditure, because again, what we're doing is we're not forcing the acquisition to have to adjust to the Moody's hardware stack during the time of integration. Instead, what we can say is, hey, you guys can consume applications and services the way we're provisioning through Okta, but as you go through your normal hardware refresh cycle, which is typically a 3-year cycle, when it's time to refresh your hardware, you come onto the Moody's stack and you get the Moody's laptop and hardwares. So looking at this here, this was a recent use case that Keith spoke about. Last year we acquired Reis, which is a real estate firm, and we signed the paperwork and started the official integration mid-October. Within about a week, we were able to connect Reis to Okta to be able to essentially sync up their user store for the enablement and access, right? In a couple of weeks later, we had Reis users in their own independent workspace on our Slack tenant, collaborating with Moody's users, with Moody's lines of business and among themselves. And in about a month, that's an AWS icon. In about a month, we were able to set up an AWS account on our AWS tenant and have the Reis users and their developers have access so they can start building out their cloud infrastructure. And finally, by the end of the year, so we're looking at 2.5 months here from the start of this integration work, that we were able to give them access to our HR system so they can start doing things like timesheet management, payroll, and vacation tracking, and so on and so forth. So before I hand it off back to Keith, I want to say that we were able to achieve a lot of valuable things in a particularly short amount of time, relatively speaking. But I want to emphasize what enabled all of this was Moody's commitment to becoming less reliant on our on-premise infrastructure and taking a cloud-first approach to applications and services, right? By embracing technologies like Office 365, AWS, and application collaboration apps, we're able to leverage a technology like Okta, which is a cloud platform itself, to deliver solutions much quicker. So as we're continuing to go down the path of new challenges and new initiatives with respect to integrations, Okta not only continues to play an integral part of our SaaS-based access strategy, but it's vital to our integration philosophy. And ultimately, bringing people and processes together in an efficient manner is what's continued to distinguish the Moody's brand. So,
cool. Thanks, Gurinder.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just add a couple of things really on this slide. Really, the acquisition literally closed on the 15th of October, and 2 weeks later we had people collaborating on Slack. And this was a data and analytics company, so really a big part of what we were buying was their data set. And in 2 weeks we had a Slack channel up and running with people passing data sets, sample data sets backwards and forwards, collaborating, asking questions across the organization. And in prior acquisitions, that's been an incredibly painful process. The second thing that was really had a real kind of hard dollar benefit to us as the business was the HR payroll enablement, right? Reis is a US company, and basically by putting them onto our payroll and HR systems, by the end of the year we managed to totally turn off their benefits, their payroll, their 401k system, and basically bring them all into our preferred providers, which actually gave the employees a real benefit. We're a much bigger company. So for the employees of the acquired company, they got immediate access to our much better healthcare, much better 401k plan, but actually saved hundreds of thousands of dollars as well by being able to do that in 2.5 months, something we've never been able to do before. The third thing I'd add is this is the first time we've tried it this way. So what's actually really exciting to us is literally on October the 15th, we didn't know whether Gurinder and his team were going to be able to make that HR system work, right? We were kind of venturing into an unknown area where they were saying, well, we think we can make it work, but if it doesn't, we're going to have a fallback plan. Now, those tools are Okta enabled. So the next acquisition this year, probably this year, maybe next year, we'll just be able to turn these things on and actually do it even faster. So that's what's really exciting us on the business side about what we've done here. And I think it definitely is one of the most fundamental changes to the way we operate that's happened in the last few years. So thank you.
So my question was that I think I can see the benefit of using Okta when the customers who are heavily using cloud application. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand this correctly. If I have good percentage of the on-premise application, maybe your analogy may not be 100% correct.
So you're partially right in that, right? There's still dependency for on-premise infrastructure and to consume a lot of those directly. But again, the fact that we're enabling and embracing a lot of the cloud capabilities will give us some capabilities to integrate back. So like one of the things I referenced was Amazon Workplaces, right? Amazon Workplaces allows you to be able to basically have a VDI on the Moody's network. So a consumer who is not on the Moody's network, doesn't have a Moody's domain credentials, can still be able to leverage a tool like that to consume applications or resources on-prem.
And I would say that it's kind of really turned everybody's, opened everyone's eyes on the business side about part of the benefit of moving to the cloud, right? So we were already kind of along that path, but it's really, really kind of reinforced the importance. Yep.
Hi. So, you know, the initial integration piece where I guess the integration target is still using their HR system, but you're connecting them through Active Directory. That's pretty exciting because I see that cuts months off of an integration to initially start some connectivity. My question is, when you get the integration target, when they're shifting from their HR system to your HR system, how do you work through the complexity of continuing to maintain that connectivity to those applications? I would assume there would have to be a shift to some degree in how you would manage that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think because of the size, they were 300-person company. They weren't as tightly integrated in many of those respects, right? So they didn't have an awful lot of their internal systems hanging off the back of their HR system. And often that's the sort of acquisition we're doing where they're kind of less down the road.
Okay, so not thousands of users,
correct,
like hundreds of users.
Right. In this case, we had 300 users, but yeah.
Okay.
So you talked about unifying the Active Directory together. One of the challenges we've had as we've done mergers and acquisitions is just having a universal directory so that people know who to contact and how to contact people via phone, email, et cetera. Are you using Okta to push data back and forth, or how are you handling that to move forward as you integrate with these companies?
So right now, Active Directory is still our source of truth, same as for the acquisition. We're leaving that independently. Right now, the enablements we've done directly has been strictly for SaaS consumption of the services. I think it's a bigger effort to align Active Directories, obviously, because they're deeply entrenched in the different capabilities they all have. So that's definitely going to be a challenge that we have. But one of the things that can eliminate the challenge is if we end up just saying, hey, we're just going to bring you over into ours, then you don't have the problem of trying to integrate.
I think the other thing we've seen is people at Reese, the company that we acquired, actually use like the HR system to look up other people in the organization, find out their contact details. So our Active Directory syncs with our HR system. And they're using the old chat features and kind of trying to understand who is it they're talking to, where they sit in the organization. So that's been very beneficial.
From a branding perspective, are you having the people whose company was acquired maintain their previous email addresses for their domain for that previous brand? Or are you working to provide aliases so they have both the old and the new? And how are you integrating that with Okta?
It varies on an acquisition by acquisition basis. I think the interesting thing about the way we've approached it here is it actually makes it much more of a business decision, right? How are we going to deal with those things? Whereas in the past, it was almost an IT-driven thing. When could we, in 18 months, 18 months is the soonest we could have put everybody on the same email address. Now it's only a couple of months in, we can make a real business decision about how do we want to approach it. And that's actually been kind of one of the most surprising and it changes the whole conversation. How we, do we want to keep both brands? Do we want to turn one off sooner? What's our And we didn't used to be able to do that. It used to be very much driven by the time of the integration.
So in that scenario where you want to have that aliasing, and I'm going a little deeper. Are you using a secondary email address in the provisioning into UD or into the mirrored AD? How are you accomplishing that? So if you want to have both, right?
I believe, I'm not the right person, and I don't know that anyone from our email team's here, but I believe we're aliasing the email addresses so that everything they send will come from the Moody's email address going forward, but any email that's sent to reese.com will come through to their email, and then Latam will transition people.
Yeah, it's just forwarding. Yeah.
And just to add to what Keith says, I think that's one of the beauties of Okta, right, is I think a lot of you guys who have it and who do these implementations, you could see, hey, from a technical perspective, what attributes and what authentication schema I want to pass to the application. So if the application says, hey, I need your native, whatever was on your acquisition company, you can you choose to pass that attribute, whether that's, let's say, an acquisition's email address, but again, front the user object with their branded email. So that's a great functionality and capability that Okta provides. So.
Have you integrated with companies that don't have AD at all? Because we're seeing some of that are so small that they're not even running AD.
Not with Okta, no. Everything we've done so far has been AD driven, but I think at the end of the day, what Okta cares about is a user store. Whether that's AD, LDAP, or anything else, it's just a database it's pulling from, and then it's going to manage that store and identities.
Okay, great, thank you.
Have you guys integrated with or merged or acquired another company that was also running Okta? And can you, if you have, can you explain how you consolidated to a single Okta tenant? We're currently going through that right now. We're leveraging org to org, but in the near future, we're going to have to consolidate to a single tenant. So just curious if you've gone through that yet.
I think we should speak to you then, because we haven't really encountered that yet. But I'm sure because Okta obviously is transforming a lot of businesses, so we'll end up encountering a case where we have to do a Okta to Okta integration, and probably org to org is probably what we'll look at in the beginning. Okay.
Well, if there are no other questions, thank you again so much, and please let's give a final round of applause to Keith and Gurinder.